సో ఈరోజు నేను కల్కి 2898 గురించి మాట్లాడుతున్నాను. నేను నా రివ్యూ ఇస్తాను. So let's get into it. So unfortunately, as I mentioned in the previous video, we are about an hour away from the nearest IMAX theater that was playing this movie. So for now, we just went to go see it in the normal theater, and maybe another time we'll go to see it in the actual IMAX theater, because actually I'd like to see it there. And I've actually been hearing that in India and some of the big cities in the US that people are struggling to find tickets for Kalki. But luckily for us, we had a really easy time finding tickets to go see it in the theater near us. So that's good. That made it easy. So overall, naku ee movie ante chaala ishtam. I really liked this movie. There was so much hype surrounding this movie that it sometimes makes me nervous that the movie won't live up to the hype. But I thought the movie was pretty good. I thought that it kept me pretty thoroughly entertained the entire time. I didn't feel like it got to the point where it was so slow that I was getting bored or anything like that. I will say though that the first half of the movie is definitely slower than the second half. There's obviously a lot more going on in the second half of the movie, so that's the more exciting part. And I think it's really important to remember that when it comes to movies like this, that we remember that these kind of movies are mostly geared towards an Indian audience who's already familiar with some of these Hindu stories and the background on some of these. I think that for foreigners, it can be a little bit more confusing. I don't think the movie really spoon feeds you every little plot detail. Luckily for me, beforehand, I did read about like the stories in Hinduism, and my husband did take some time to explain some of it to me as well. So I think I went into this with a better, like a background, a better understanding of what was going to happen and like what certain things were referring to. So that was really helpful. But I have seen some reviews from other foreigners who I don't think they really dived into the background at all. So I don't think they were able to enjoy the movie as much as they could have if they would have done that. So I think if you are a foreigner, I recommend that you do read up on some of these background stories in advance, because the movie is not going to necessarily spell everything out for you. With that being said, I still completely think that foreigners can enjoy this movie. I think there was enough of it that was explained that everyone can enjoy it, but I think you can have a better appreciation for the backgrounds of the characters if you look into the stories in advance. So now I'll talk a little bit about what I think the movie did really well and then what the movie could have done better. So first of all, I think the overall atmosphere that they created in the movie was really good. The scenery, the graphics, the costumes, even the background music, just like the whole vibe and atmosphere, I think those were really, really good in this movie. I felt pretty immersed in the different worlds that they had created. I thought that was really good. And like I said, the background music was very, very good. I always pay attention to music in movies. I am a big music lover, so I think that's a very important thing, and I really enjoyed it. And of course, in movie lo chala fight scenes unnai. So if you like fight scenes and action, I think you'll really enjoy that part of it. I thought they were good. They added a lot of comedy elements, you know, into the fight scenes and into the movie in general. So I think it kind of, it could have been a very, very heavy story, but I think those little bits of comedy really lightened the story in a good way. So I really enjoyed that as well. Another thing that I really enjoyed were the cameo appearances from the actors. I know that there's a lot of really well-known people that made cameo appearances in the movie. I knew some of them. I might have not known everybody, and I think, again, this would be something that's more geared towards an Indian audience who's familiar with these people. Foreigners probably aren't going to exactly know who they're looking at when they make these big, you know, the big deal out of their cameo appearances, but I did know some of them. And even when I was looking at the trailer, I was looking at the list of actors, so I knew that some people would be in there, but I guess just the way they presented them, it works better if the audience knows who they are. So I don't think those kind of scenes would have landed with foreigners versus Indians, but I think for Indians, it was done well. Also, I think the overall story is very good. I really do enjoy the stories in Hinduism. I think there are a lot of really amazing and intricate stories, and I think they translate really, really well to movies. I always find these stories very interesting. My husband does tell them to me a lot, so I always enjoy hearing them, and to see them on the big screen in a movie is really, really cool. So I think that's another very strong point for the movie. The graphics, for the budget alone, I think the graphics were very, very strong. This film probably didn't have the budget of like some of these big Hollywood movies that are being made, and I think the graphics kind of are still comparable to those. I enjoyed watching it. I think the cinematography, the camera work, everything was very, very good. So those were my favorite things about the movie. A few things that I didn't enjoy as much. I think the movie was a little bit longer than it could have been, just because I think some of the scenes dragged out a little bit longer than they should have. This is just my opinion. I think some of the fight scenes were very, very long. Also, I think some parts could have been kind of cut out. Now, there weren't really any songs in the movie except the one, and quite honestly, even though the scenes during that song had a role to play in showing the character that Prabhas plays, his desires, I think it could have been shortened. So I think that one took up a lot of time, and I don't know. I think it could have gone without it. It wasn't terrible, but I think it could have done without it. The last thing that I didn't like was that there wasn't enough of Djordje. So I'm hoping in the second part that he has a bigger role to play, which I think he will, because it didn't look like he died. So let's hope. The only other thing that I would consider a negative in this movie is sometimes I didn't feel like they took enough time to fully immerse you in the characters themselves. I don't feel like they showed enough depth to some of the characters. I think they could have delved a little bit deeper into their personalities and everything to make you more attached to the characters. However, I think the acting was still good. So yeah, I don't have a whole lot of bad to say about the movie. I think overall it was a solid movie. It was very entertaining. I enjoyed watching it. Yeah, overall very good. Honestly, I think all the actors did a great job in their roles. I think they picked the perfect people for their parts. I think Prabhas did a really great job incorporating some humor, almost some laziness into his character, which was kind of funny because for 1 minute he'd be really lazy, and then the next minute he'd be up fighting like 20 people at once. So it was just like a comedic thing. I think he did a good job. And then I think Deepika did a good job as well. Again, I wish they could have gotten a little deeper into her character, but I think maybe in the coming parts they'll get a little bit deeper into all of the characters. I think Kamal Haasan made a good villain. I really liked what they did, like his makeup and everything. The room that he was just kind of floating in above all that water and everything. Just the vibe of the whole thing. I think they really did that well. And I think he's going to be a very interesting villain to watch in the second part. So I'm very excited to see how all of that plays out. I think Big B also did a fantastic job in his role. I really enjoyed watching all of the scenes that he was in. And of course, it was always a delight to see Bamigaru. Like I said, when I watched the preview, I did not expect him to be in this movie, but he always adds that little touch of comedy that you need. And I will say, when I left the movie, I felt so proud of myself because I felt like I could understand the Telugu in this movie so well. Even though I had subtitles when I was watching it in the theater, I think even without the subtitles, I could understand so many things. And that just makes me so happy because I feel like I'm really growing in my journey to fluency. Hopefully fluency. So yeah, I was very proud of myself when I left. That's pretty much my review of the movie. Again, I really did enjoy the movie. Naku Koki 2898 anti-challenged them. So I do recommend that you go see it. And again, If you're not familiar with Hinduism and the stories told in Hinduism, I would recommend that you read up on it a little bit, just so you get the background of the characters and just like an idea of the stories before you go into it. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little movie review. And as always, Machipokandi, like Chandi, comment Chandi, subscribe Chandi, and share Chandi. And until next time, bye! Balikaludang!